Wait.
You've been listening to Trading Time on AM 1380 WYSH.
Welcome to Between the Lines. Let me get my dates right. This is the 19th, Thursday 19th. It's 7 p.m. in the evening. We still don't have a Speaker of the House. And we're working. But we got a very important subject tonight. It's one of those shows. Normally I can talk about most anything, but I did some studying tonight. I know it'll be hard to believe, but we're going to talk to an organization with an acronym of CORE. Basically, it's all of the retired employees from Oak Ridge retired employees that are brought together as a coalition who worked at the plants over the years. My father was one of them. And in the studio, my good friend Shirley Oden Cox is one of them, and our guest Dave Whitehead's one of them. And there's literally half the community worked there at one time or another. But they have some issues, and I can remember when I was a young man, and people started to retire in the 70s. And we had the 74 oil crisis, and we had the 79 inflation. And inflation went like 100%. All of those retirement benefits all of a sudden became consequential. They were like half of what they expected them to be worth. And it's been an issue for a long time. Welcome, Dave. Let's talk about CORE for a few seconds and minutes and its origination. Then we'll get right into the problems that retirees are having a hard time.
CORE was formed in 2002.
I thought it had been longer than that. Okay, 20 years ago, that's still a long time.
And it was all about the fact that a manager at Y12, and we won't name him because he was just doing his job, took a look at the pension fund, which at that time was about 120% funded,
Yes.
and said, there's a lot of extra money sitting there, not doing any good. We can take some of that money and build a building with it.
Isn't it funny how they do that? Yeah.
And so there were some retirees and some folks that were about to retire that thought that probably wasn't a good idea.
Yeah.
So this coalition was formed it was chartered in Tennessee as a not-for-profit organization, really,
Sure.
to not so much fight that particular issue, but to support the pension, make sure the pensions are protected, and also some health benefits that retirees have to make sure that through the years that something doesn't happen to them.
Okay, we're going to have four. Basically, we've got about 4 12-minute segments on the show around the commercials. So I'm going to start out with you talking about CORE. Explain to the viewers, if you worked for AEC in the old days, Atomic Energy Commission, which is the federal building on the Hill in those days, or you worked directly for the federal government in some method, that would include post office people. Anybody has a direct job with the federal government. But in our world, Oak Ridge Reservation Supervision, there can be a lot of different things. You were a federal retiree, which is 20 years. Those people are guaranteed COLAs and pension increases every year, correct?
Correct.
Okay. But if you work for the federal government and you thought you were part of the Manhattan Project, or all the things that we sacrificed from the 40s on, and we had a pension fund that we paid into, but unlike Social Security, where we all got 8% last year, we're getting 3.5% this year, all the money you paid in the pension, you get no cost of living adjustments. Is that correct?
Well, it's up to the particular contractor that's managing the pension fund.
Okay. Does that pension fund get passed from Union Carbide to Lockheed to Bechtel, does each person assume that pension fund?
That's exactly what happened, and DOE, or really AEC, which
Yeah.
ERDA then became DOE.
Sure.
That would always be in the new contract, that the new contractor would assume the benefit programs for all those employees who were transferring from one to the other. So, like myself, that's what happened to me. I moved from Union Carbide to Martin Marietta, then Bechtel Jacobs, then Ucor, and each time my pension and benefits moved with me, and the money to pay for those also got moved.
Are there can they touch your money? I mean, if you've paid in and you're guaranteed so much a month or so much in retirement on pension, how does each contractor affect that?
Well, today, you know, there's a ERISA law that was passed several years ago that keep folks from messing with pension
Yes,
plans.
because people were messing
pension
with them,
funds,
especially in
things
the
like that.
Teamsters and some other units, yeah.
So, but it's up to each fund manager, and there's one for every contractor, to determine, you know, how they invest the funds, how much money needs to put in to keep them solvent, figure out how much future liability they're going to have, and so they have to look at that and make decisions about how much money needs to be put in. However, all those contracts are reimbursable through DOE, which eventually goes to the federal government to pay, you know, in the federal budget. So the money that goes into those pension funds actually comes from the federal government through the Department of Energy.
But it also came from the employees at one time. You don't have a pension fund without contributing to your pension fund, correct?
No, that's not correct. These are defined pension plans which you don't contribute to.
Okay.
In the early days, when it was difficult to attract talent to Oak Ridge,
Yes.
you know, kind of out of the way place, a pension plan, a defined pension plan, which said, you know, I'm going to go to work for this company, I'm going to work for them for 30 years, and based on my salary and years of service, when I retire, I will have a certain amount of pension. That was seen as a
Was that
recruiting
traditionally the
tool.
way it was done in the 50s and 60s? Okay.
Yeah. This was before the day of 401ks, you know, portable plans and things like this. So, I mean, that's kind of the way, when I came out of school, you know, you wanted to find a company that's a good match for you and work for them your whole career, and then, you know, retire with a pension from that company. That was kind of the way business was being done then. So,
I mean, as a child, I remember so much of that with my father. Yeah, I mean, I do. At Union Carbide, I can remember a lot of that.
now in the early years, Union Carbide, manager of the fund for all workers, all contractor workers in Oak Ridge, periodically would give a COLA. They would look at inflation and so forth, and they'd decide. Of course, they're doing it Union Carbide employee-wide. I mean, they had pension programs for all their employees, and so they would probably every 2 or 3 years they'd look at inflation, and there'd be a COLA. I mean, there was nothing mandated or required. It's just, you know, they saw that as the right thing to do, just like salaries are adjusted, you know, based on
Sure.
inflation and so forth, you know.
So basically, my father retires from OR. He actually died working, but he finishes his career at ORNL. And my next door neighbor's father finishes his career working at Y12. Okay. I think Union Carbide may have had both contracts at that time. I know they had ORNL. But
They had all
yeah.
the contracts at one time.
But today, if you pay both of those people into pension fund, does Lockheed now manage my neighbors and UT Battelle manages my father's? Would that be the way it would work?
Of course, Lockheed's out of the picture because their contract got transferred.
Bechtel, I'm sorry. So the existing Bechtel would manage my Y12 retiree friend's account and UT Battelle would manage my father's? Is that how it would work?
Right now, anybody who retires from UT Battelle or ORNL, they would manage those people's pension fund. if they.
Are they
if they're
managing all of
eligible.
the pension funds from anybody that ever retired from ORNL?
No,
Okay,
they would only manage those after a certain date.
okay.
When UT Battelle was spun off of the major contract in Oak
Okay.
Ridge.
I got you.
So at one
major
time, there
contract
was just
was-
one.
Okay. So,
So now you have four. You have a Y-12 pension fund and a O&L pension fund, a UCOR, which was the old K-25 pension fund, and then there's a small group of guards that guard the federal building and some of the reservation, and there's a pension fund under their contract.
they're not federal employees.
Correct.
Well, that's a bad break for them, wasn't it? Well, I can remember the early AEC days of security. I remember Frank Callahan was in charge of that. He was a neighbor of mine, very distinguished man, and some others. I think he was head of AEC, all of security. I can't remember all the details. In those days, Alvin Weinberg lived down the street from Cedar Hill. You had Russell and Russell on one street, and everybody in our neighborhood was either a Nobel Prize winner or an AEC chairman. It's just amazing times. We all worked together. It was an amazing time. So I'm getting a better picture. But so today, if I've retired from Y-12 10 years ago, and I'm sitting here at 70-something years old, or 15 years ago, and I'm getting my $1,222 from Y-12, whatever the money is, I've got to get that from Bechtel. Doesn't matter when I retired, Bechtel's managing that fund now.
No, right now, CNS
Okay, it's the same
is
to
the
me.
contractor for Y-12.
Right. I should have said CNH.
And so, yes, anybody that retires from Y-12 right now, their pension funds being managed by CNS.
What about if I retired 25 years ago?
CNS is managing that because they inherited the people who retired from Union Carbide and Martin
That's
Marietta
what I'm
and so
saying.
forth. So Y-12 does,
So I guess what I'm looking
Past a
at, what
certain
I'm
date.
trying to figure out is that we have, I think your sheet had about 12,000 retirees over Knox and Anderson. 60-something hundred in each county, I believe it was. Maybe 7,100, but in that area. So you got 12 to 14,000 people in there. How many different managers of those 12 to 14,000 people are there? How many different people, how many different pension funds are they account for those?
there's only four
Okay,
right now.
what you mentioned before. Okay.
All right, so in 1998, when it was all one contractor, and 1998 is when Bechtel Jacobs environmental cleanup project was spun off.
Right.
And people moved from Y-12, X-10, K-25 to that. The people at Y-12 were doing both Y-12 and X-10 at that time.
Okay.
And so they were managing everybody that was left that didn't transfer over. And so anybody who retired after that date that had previously been with Union Carbide, Martin Marietta, and so forth, was continued to be managed by the Y-12 fund, which now is CNS is the contractor. So they've picked those folks up.
So we have four contractors. We'll go to break after this question. We have four contractors who pay out roughly these 14,000 people in these counties, Anderson, maybe more if you count other county sites, Anderson, Knox, Rome, and others. The question now becomes, I guess you haven't broken into congressional districts, actually, Burchett and Fleischman and others. So basically, you have four people. Can the federal government, I guess they can do whatever they want, but is there ever a time when there's deference to one of the groups other than the other group? Can I give the people that went to ORNL a 4% increase and not give anybody else anything? I mean, can the federal government target that, or how's that work?
Well, it's not the federal government. Each contract is managed by the company that's been given that responsibility.
In their oversight by the federal government?
They're oversight by DOE, so they
DOE,
have
yeah.
to go to DOE and say, here's how much we're going to put in the fund this year. Here's how we're going to manage it. DOE approves it. DOE puts those funds in their budget and then has to go to Congress.
And that happens every year, even if you don't get an increase. They have to get that approval on a regular
Right,
basis.
because these funds are not funded, and because they're going to have to go on for years and years. It's going to take billions of dollars to pay out what you need for these, what will eventually be 25,000 people that are retirees by these funds.
Similar to Social Security. Does it was funny, I was talking to one congressman, and I said, what are we doing about Social Security? We're going to have to raise the rate. We're going to have to do something more fiscally responsible. And he told me, he said, eventually, Alan, the problem's going to take care of itself. Because us three won't be a problem anymore, and the young people won't cost as much. So basically, and he's being very honest, aggregation of the ages, there'll be less people in that collecting group and more people in the producing group, but you got to cycle around in it. It's interesting. So I'm wondering does the person that's 32 years old who's working at Y12 today have any impact on our pension fund? Do they pay anything into it?
They're not a member of these pension funds because there was a point in time several years ago that they stopped adding people to these defined pension plans. So there's a finite number. Right now there's 15,000 that are receiving. There's another 10,000 that are eligible, and will go up as they retire.
I got you.
But of course, we're losing people every year. People are passing away and dropping out of the program. So it'll never reach 25,000, but that's, I think Ornell is the only
that makes it a more
company.
fixable problem to me. If you've got a finite number, and you know you're going to have to manage these people, then, and you don't have new additional burdens coming, you ought to be able to find some kind of economic resolution to deal with a fixed number of people. We'll be right back. Brad, take us away for 2 minutes. Give us some commercials.
Daniel Forrester has been trusted by Anderson County families for nearly 2 decades. Daniel has appeared in Anderson County Chancery, Circuit, Sessions, and Juvenile Court thousands of times over the past decade. A Rule 31 mediator, Daniel has been trusted to mediate hundreds of cases across Anderson County. A community leader, Daniel has worked closely with local officials to make Anderson County a better place. A conservative and dedicated husband and father, Daniel's faith has shaped his character and integrity. On March 5th, vote Daniel Forrester for Anderson County Chancellor.
From Oak Ridge, Tennessee, IB3 Global Solutions conducts operations around the world to enhance the U.S. national security posture and minimize radiological and nuclear threats. IB3 Global Solutions. Mission first.
Fan Gear Barn is Oak Ridge's source for new and vintage sports fan gear from around the world of sports. Find your favorite team gear at Fan Gear Barn, located at 977 Oak Ridge Turnpike, across from the hospital. Open 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., 6 days a week. Closed on Sundays.
At Navarro, we partner with our clients to advance clean energy and deliver effective solutions for complex challenges in the nuclear and environmental fields.
The Free Medical Clinic of Oak Ridge presents New Year's Eve 2024 Countdown on Sunday, December 31st, 2023 at 9 p.m. to January 1st, 2024 at 1 a.m. Live band, food truck, hot air balloons, sponsored by Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Baird, the City of Oak Ridge, David Coffey, BBB Communication, and Holloway Event Company. Ball drop and fireworks. Come with your friends and family to count down the new year together. Don't miss it. Free to the public. For more information, go to fmcor.org. All
right, crew, let's get started. Sure.
Don't ignore the law. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 days before any digging project so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811.
We're talking about the cost of living for retirees that work in the federal project work here, the mission of our country, and how hard it's getting to sustain them. They have a fixed fund, we're learning, and the federal government needs to supplement that more if they're going to meet their medical bills and others, and that's what we're talking about. I want to throw a yell out for Georgia Tech. When I was a kid, you're a Georgia Tech alumni. When I was a kid, they knew how to play football. But they are just one of the best engineering schools in the country. And they deserve a lot of credit. Georgia Tech, there's a few. Even locally, Tennessee Tech's gotten to be a better engineering school. They've got a lot going on down there. Have you been back to Atlanta?
Go back all the time.
Okay. You want to defend the football program for a minute?
Well, they're getting better, but
Okay.
they've never really been the same since Bobby died, in my opinion.
Bobby, yeah, that's true with a lot of programs in Georgia. Yeah, they got it fixed in Georgia, but yeah.
The reason I ended up going there is because my guidance counselor at Clinton said nobody from Clinton has ever been accepted at Georgia Tech.
They
You're
threw it
wasting
up.
your time.
They threw it
you
at
know.
you.
So I
There
said,
you go.
well, here I go.
We got a whole new thing for the show. The only Clinton High graduate ever to get accepted at that time, ever to get accepted into Georgia Tech. If you can get Georgia Tech, what kind of engineering did you do?
Chemical engineering.
That's where my father was. He went to Rhode Island. He's about 20 years ahead of you, or 30, 25, but he loved it. I mean, he was part of the Indiana Ordnance Works, and he got Manhattan Project, came in 43, and as he would say, the first 10 years were exciting. And then it got all convoluted in private industry and everything else. But he enjoyed it.
Same with my father. He was with University of New Hampshire, chemical engineer, got recruited by the Manhattan Project. He thought he was going to Columbia University in New York.
Great school.
But no, he was in the Army in Oak Ridge, Tennessee.
Yeah. That'll do it. That'll do it that time of days. Okay, so we're sitting here and we're looking at our cost of living. You got a pension fund. I'm gonna go the other side. I'm gonna play the contractor side. You got a pension. You basically have gotten what we promised we'd give you. If it doesn't go as far as it did, that's not our fault. Okay, how do you answer that?
Well, a dollar in 1998, which is the last year our pension funds in Oak Ridge have gotten any COLAs, it takes $1.89 today to buy the same sort of thing.
Yep.
And so, essentially, your buying power has almost been cut.
In the same
half.
monthly check you got, let's say, just to be safe, $2,000, you're still getting that exact same amount today. Well, that's worthless.
The people that have retired in 1998 are getting the same check that they started getting in 1998.
So if you've gotten $842, that's what you're getting now.
That's right. Now, during that same period of time, federal workers have been getting cost of living adjustments all right along.
And I'm pretty good numbers, and if you're getting 3 or 4% a year, even 2 or 3% over 20 years, you've obviously more than doubled, and you're closer to 2.5 times.
Yeah, we've got some charts that show if you just track inflation, that the federal workers' pension funds have almost kept up with inflation during that period. And so we're sitting down here on the zero axis of
Negative 75%.
nothing.
Yeah.
So we feel like it's time that
It seems like Coors asked for this for a long time, if I remember correct, before your time.
That's true. When I was still working, the people that put together CORE asked.
A lot of people have never heard of CORE.
That's true. That's one of our biggest difficulties. Of course, we've got a website, but if you don't know about it, you don't know to go there and find out what our issues are.
And the good news is a lot of senior citizens watch this show. That's our best thing. So we got to get that up. And I'm going to say it again, www, all right? And was there a word before CORE? MyCore. MyCore, M-Y, CORE with 2 R's, .org, O-R-G. Go on there and see what, if you're a retired worker in one of the plants, by lending your voice and getting involved, listen, I've spent my life in politics, as sure I can tell you. The more pressure, the bigger the numbers, the more they feel. And that's the way they work.
Yeah,
they got a lot of job. They got a hard job today.
We've actually, people don't know how to get in touch with your representative or your senators, but we've got a kind of a form letter that tells you how to get in touch with them and suggests some points you might want to make, but to tell them how it's affected you over the years that your pension hadn't been increased.
And I write ads all over the state of Tennessee and the South, and I do a lot of political work on advertising and internets and in print too. And the bottom line is you got to say it in 30 words. You got to tell them flat out, the money ain't keeping up. I can't pay my medical bills. I need some help. At that point, they either respond or they don't. And then if they ask for more information, you can get it to them. But you got to deal with staffers. They do all the work. But, you get a petition, online or not, that has 1,000 signatures on it. And registered voters, I mean, they can get real interested real quick, Dave. But the bottom line is that really what we need, or what you need, is an effort to get the federal government to put more money in. Now, can they fund Oak Ridge and not fund other areas of the country?
They can. There's like 29 pension funds that the Department of Energy
in the nuclear world, okay,
that has over the country, you know, and each one of those goes through some portion of DOE, some organization through DOE, same way as we do. So they're all.
What's the pension fund in this area? What's the pension fund output per annum? What do you think? How much are they paying out to these 12,000 employees? 200 million a year, 150 million? Do you have any idea?
I don't know exactly. You know, the companies are very reluctant to share personal information.
Imagine that.
And so, I mean, I understand that. But, you know, it's even difficult to get a cost estimate of what a X% COLA would take for the folks that are retired type.
Well, you think about it. Okay, let's think about, we got 15,000 retired people. We said there's another 10 that are getting pensions too that they're not eligible.
They eventually will when they retire.
So we got
they're still working.
We're a fixed number here. So we got 15,000. So if you got $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, you're dealing with about $180 million a year probably. I'm doing the math in my head. You're the Georgia Tech guy, help me here. So $180 million a year. So I'm thinking, maybe they could go in and give it, if they gave a one-time boost of 20% to that amount, they always negotiate. If they give a one-time boost of 20% to that amount, then they would have 20 million or 30 million they'd have to rekindle. We're talking about these four that they would have to rekindle every year. You know, I don't think you're going to get a major overhaul, but you got to get something moving in that direction. Well, as you said, you got to get their attention first, right, Shirley? Got to get their attention first, so we can do that. But the question is, you got to have a request. Go with this, fix this, put some more money in, give us some kind of modified adjustment, and we'll come back in 2 years and ask you again, I think.
Yeah, if we talk to DOE, they say you really need to go talk to the contractor because the contractor is the fiduciary of the pension plan.
Well, the fiduciary doesn't have enough beans in the pot to split them up.
But you go talk to the contractor. Of course, they're being fully funded by DOE, and they're not encouraged to come up there asking for more money.
I get that.
They're trying to save money, so there's no
incentive. But you really don't have any leverage against the contractor. You've got leverage against an elected official. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You have a right to go to a man who represents you, that you pay federal taxes into, or a woman, I'm sorry, and you go in there and you say, look, we need to shore this up. It's the right thing to do. When you're shipping $180 billion overseas, or you're shipping 60, see if you can't pull $1 billion out for the folks here at home. I mean, that's my pitch. I mean,
that's exactly right. I mean, and that's what we've come to the conclusion that we're not going to solve this problem by talking to DOE or talking to the contractors. It's going to have to be Congress is going to have to appropriate the dollars and earmark it for this specific purpose. I mean, they can't just send it to DOE and Oak Ridge. But it's liable to get sent to some other work.
As long as it's an indefinite number, it'll always seem bigger than it is, or they won't be able to manage it. But when you come by and you say, we need $22.6 million put in extra in this fund this year over the $150 million. We're making numbers up here, folks. But we want 15 or 20% more this year so we can increase retirees' pay. And I'll go on record again, I have no equity, no family member involved in this. So, I mean, the bottom line is that if you can get that number, then they have a number they can work with. Then they can say, okay, they want $18 million a year. That's a year, because you got to pay it again next year, right? Can't be a one-time deal. We need a certain amount more every year to help these retirees get where they are. And we're going to take another break in a couple minutes. I want to come back and I want to know a little bit about the hardships. I want to know, we'll talk about the medical hardships. That seems to me where it's at. I buy stuff every day in medicine, and we have a health savings card where we work, and you can save up part of your salary and get it deducted and go out and clip it, and it helps you, but you still put all that money in yourself.
It's interesting you bring that up because medical costs have gone up a lot more than just standard inflation.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 125% for
incredible.
people over 62.
It's incredible. I tried to buy a box of Epsom salts. It's doubled, 100%. I mean, in 2 years. And, you know, I think the capitalists took advantage of COVID. The managers did a pretty poor job. I think they erred on safety, but I think the supply chain, they're making excuses for the supply chain. I just think more can be done. But I'm one guy. I may be totally wrong. But I know that they have an ability in a $1 trillion budget to help DOE retirees. And no different than veterans, don't you think? Same thing?
Yeah, I mentioned this to Representative Fleischman.
Yes.
Had a guy from his Washington office call me, and I specifically said,
You know his first name?
Ian.
Ian, okay.
Ian Merritt.
Okay.
And he was asking, what can they do? And I said, well, the first thing you've got to do is you need to figure out what all of our requests are going to cost. You can get a cost estimate from the contractors in DOE. They won't give it to me because it involves too much personal information, but you can ask them for our few things that we've asked for. They can do a cost estimate for the whole program, not just for next year and future, and then they can go write an appropriations bill. In my mind, I know that's probably too simple, but
No, simple's good in this
for
business.
that amount of money and earmark it to come to Oak Ridge to solve this problem.
Interesting.
If, you got to get Congress to vote to approve that, but,
Chandler, let's take another break.
Daniel Forrester has been trusted by Anderson County families for nearly 2 decades. Daniel has appeared in Anderson County Chancery, Circuit, Sessions, and Juvenile Court thousands of times over the past decade. A Rule 31 mediator, Daniel has been trusted to mediate hundreds of cases across Anderson County. A community leader, Daniel has worked closely with local officials to make Anderson County a better place. A conservative and dedicated husband and father, Daniel's faith has shaped his character and integrity. On March 5th, vote Daniel Forrester for Anderson County Chancellor.
The Free Medical Clinic of Oak Ridge presents New Year's Eve 2024 Countdown on Sunday, December 31st, 2023 at 9 p.m. to January 1st, 2024 at 1 a.m. Live band, food truck, hot air balloons, sponsored by Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Baird, the City of Oak Ridge, David Coffey, BBB Communication, and Holloway Event Company. Ball drop and fireworks. Come with your friends and family to count down the new year together. Don't miss it. Free to the public. For more information, go to fmcor.org.
All right, crew, let's get started. Sure.
Don't ignore the law. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 days before any digging project so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811.
From Oak Ridge, Tennessee, IB3 Global Solutions conducts operations around the world to enhance the U.S. national security posture and minimize radiological and nuclear threats. IB3 Global Solutions. Mission first.
At Navarro, we partner with our clients to advance clean energy and deliver effective solutions for complex challenges in the nuclear and environmental fields.
Fan Gear Barn is Oak Ridge's source for new and vintage sports fan gear from around the world of sports. Find your favorite team gear at Fan Gear Barn, located at 977 Oak Ridge Turnpike, across from the hospital. Open 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., 6 days a week. Closed on Sundays.
Welcome back, folks. We're talking about investment in the pension fund, and we think you had to work for 10 years and be at least 50 years old before you could draw on the pension fund. Most of you out there will know more about that than we do. But very interesting, very interesting. So the pension fund has a limited life in the fact that once people who were part of the pension fund, which no longer exists except in some specific situations at O&L, that they would, that fund would be less needed, say, in 30 years than it is today. So every year, is it less demand on it?
Not right now, because you still have, you have a large
10,000.
group of people, and you got another large group of people that
So it's an even
that are
trade-off
retiring.
at this point. You're pretty much balancing it. My point would be, you got to watch them when it gets to the point that you're going down a little bit, that they need to reinvest that money in the benefits for those people at that time, right? How many more years are people eligible that got out? When did they quit being eligible? You know what I'm saying? The 10,000 are going to merge into it eventually.
It's been different from each
Of the
site
four contractors, yeah.
of when they stopped allowing people to join the pension fund. But it's been quite a while.
The 90s
Yeah.
safe, yeah. That's what I figured it said.
Yeah, those were the years that they started bringing in 401K programs and contributing a little bit of money each year to your 401K savings program. That was sort of to take the place of a defined pension program like we're talking about.
I see you had a one-time pension adjustment on the list of possibilities. 75% would make it equitable. Don't think you're going to get that. But if it was just Oak Ridge, you might, because of the numbers, whatever you said, you might get a one-time adjustment to the payout.
Well, we didn't ask for 100% of, makeup for the fact that there's been no cost of living adjustments since 1998. We thought, 75% would be fair. The two federal funds that we try to compare to, they didn't keep up 100% with inflation. One of them was will be about 90, and one's about in the 80s. So we felt
But
like.
do we think Social Security's kept up? I think it's kept up pretty well, hasn't it? I mean, whatever the federal assessment of inflation is, it may think things went up 2%. We all know they went up 8 or something, like that.
Well, it's interesting. This coming January, Social Security is going to go up, I think, 3.2%.
Yeah, 3 point something.
One of the federal pension funds is going to go up 3.2%, and one of them is going to go up 2.2%. Of course,
We're not going up.
we're not going up.
Yeah, I understand.
So far.
Yeah, so far. I think we got to get firm numbers. You got to get a vision of how much money is this pension fund sending out every year. How much is it? 200 million, 250, whatever it is. If you add 200 million to it, you'd have to add a lot more than that. 200 million per year to double the number. How much would that require? A couple of $1 billion, maybe?
It's a lot of money. It's more than you would think.
Well, you could phase it in too, though. You could say
that's correct.
we need a $2 billion addition to that in the Oak Ridge Fund. Well, you could phase it in over 5 years at $400 million each or something like that.
So our thoughts were, make up 75% of the loss, and then start treating us like federal pension funds, and whatever COLA they get every year, give us the same COLA.
If you could be honest with you, if they didn't make up anything, I'm a compromiser on how federal government works. If they would just shift the way they treat you, your money would start going up pretty rapidly. You'd be behind.
Sure.
You'd be behind.
Sure.
But they need to make some consumption. What are the medical costs that you have for the pensioners? Is there any direct numbers on that?
Well, I just know from there's a cost of living index that most everybody looks at.
Right.
But it's for all ages. They actually have a cost of living index for elderly. And
Sounds like me.
Because the things that anybody over 62 would buy and the expenses they have are different than a general population. But medical costs for that group has gone up like 125% during
Right.
that same 1998 to now period. So
Tell me a little bit about the spousal problems. I'm not clear on how that works.
okay, when you retire, you're offered a spousal option, which says if I take that option and I die at some point, my spouse will keep receiving 50% of the pension that we were receiving as a couple, or basically my pension. Now, in order to fund that, you have to take a reduced pension.
That's what I had to do in the government.
And so, right now, about half the people have been taking a 2% reduction. So they just reduce their pension payments by 2% in order to pay for the spousal option. But the other half have paid up to 10%.
That's kind of what it is normally.
And so, our feeling is, why are some retirees in Oak Ridge paying a 2% penalty and others are paying as much as 10%? They all ought to be the same. And of course,
There's a
it should
formula
be the
somewhere.
2%.
Yeah. There's a formula.
And, it changed back several years ago, and why they didn't go system-wide with it, no one knows.
When I retired from local government, and I worked there 12 years, I think, and it came in and said, you can have this amount, or you can have this amount. I think there were three options, actually. It was your spouse will receive the same as you had, or your spouse will receive 50%. And I took, and I've only been there 12 years, it wasn't a lot of money, but I went from like $800 or $900 a month. I dropped a full $150 to $200 to keep her at the same rate after I die. Since she's a lot younger, right, I figured she'd get more money out of it.
And of course, almost everybody takes that option. I mean, everybody wants to provide for your spouse if something happened to you. In fact, spouses actually have to sign that right away. They don't, it's theirs unless they don't want it.
Sometimes you get two spouses that both entered about the same amount of money, worked at the plants together, and they both go on their own, and it's a little bit different, but you're right. Most of those have life insurance with them? For somebody, I mean, your pension fund. If I'm in the pension fund for 3 years and I have a heart attack and die, does my wife get some retirement off that pension fund or just the monthly payment?
Just the monthly payment. Now, most people who retired have some sort of life insurance that's paid up by the company. That's a benefit. It's like a very reduced amount that you had when you were working.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've paid into it with your stuff as you work.
When I was working, for example, I had like hundreds of thousands of life insurance of dollars, and when I retired, that was reduced down. I think it's like 60,000. And
that, my friend, is why I don't retire. That is why we keep on going, as we say. It's just different. It's just different. Yeah, and it changes. And you worry about medical insurance. How much insurance will the spouse get if does she maintain the full insurance benefits?
Well,
and do you have benefits?
We do. One of the things that we have is most contractors have it's not a requirement like pensions are, in the federal government and so forth, but they're willing to participate about 50-50 with us in paying the premiums on your Part D or Part B supplemental Medicare insurance. So it's a commitment they've made, with one exception. We have one contractor that a few years ago decided that spouses, after the retiree reached 65, that the spouse would no longer be covered. But
because they figured they had Medicare, they're slipping out the back door on you. Yeah.
Well, but in most cases, every site's a little bit different, but in general, they're going to attempt to pay 50% of your supplemental medical insurance premiums.
Okay.
You're paying the Part B, the hospital, doctors, things like that. And then the supplemental insurance takes care of things that the normal Medicare doesn't take care of.
It was really interesting because I have full insurance with my company I work for, and I have Medicare. And when I got my knee replaced, the lead insurance paid some on it. Then Medicare paid some on it, which concluded about 70 or 80%, although people at work said, nope, it's got to be total. So Medicare sent me a note that said, do not pay any more on this bill. I'd never seen anything like that. The Medicare said, we've capped it out. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, Medicare has negotiated a lot of pricing. And so you see that when you get your explanation of benefits, it'll say the doctor charged this, Medicare only pays this, And there's a little bit, you might have to pay this much, but if you've got the supplemental insurance, that's generally going to take care of that.
Yeah.
So depending on which plan you choose, you might pay a $20 copay or something like that.
Well, they send me a bill every month, but they never call me, never harass me. So I'm wondering, maybe they're just hoping I'd send them some money or something. I don't get that. Maybe that's it. You don't have that benefit.
Don't know your situation, and I'm definitely not a Medicare insurance expert.
I'm just glad to get through another month. That's where I'm at. Shirley and I joke about that. So I got a picture where you need to go, and I kind of see what you need to do. Tell me about your membership again. How many members are active, and how many are eligible, and how many are involved?
Well, there's 15,000 folks that are retired and receiving a pension.
Okay. How many of those are members of CORE?
I'd say probably about, all of them are.
Okay.
Everybody that
they're all qualified. How many of them?
Everybody that retires, you're automatically a member of CORE.
Registered, whether they paid anything or not. How many are on your mailing list that they've contacted you or they know about you?
We probably got 1,800.
That's good.
Something like that.
That's a good start.
On the mailing list. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things that, you can't go to a company and get a mailing list of folks in this day and time.
Right.
And people don't want to be bothered, so.
Well, here's my thing. If you can find one issue, one ask, and they understand what that ask is, like we want whatever it could be. We want an increase in this or that or whatever. But if finite asks, and you can get everybody, will you sign on to asking Congress to increase your check or your benefit or your hospital, whatever you want to ask for, then your membership will grow because they'll have something concrete to go with, not a generic thing. So maybe you get 3,900 signatures, all right? Then you send back the newsletter. And whether you get your $20 a year or whatever, but then you get 3,900. Then you get some correspondence, something you can tell them. Then you go for another ask and you have 4,900 following. That's how you build it up and you become more powerful. Until there's a finite group with a specific number asking for a specific thing, it becomes very hard to bring a group together like that.
We're gonna advocate for everybody that's receiving a pension or that will receive a pension, regardless of whether they've ever contributed any money to CORE to pay our bills. We have post office box, we got postage, we got printing costs, things like that. We don't have a lot of costs each year. We try to keep the cost down. So we're not needing a lot of money, and so we're going to represent people whether they contribute money to us or not, because we feel like everybody's a retiree. We're all in the same boat together, and so we're going to.
But they need to sign an electronic petition, or they need to call up and do some things.
That'd be great. The more people that are.
Trust me, you send 3,000 signatures up there with addresses, they're going to listen. Yeah. They're going to listen, because there's not many groups bigger than your group when you think about it, from a qualified standpoint. No union's that big. Nobody, they may be, but retired people vote. Mm-hmm. Well, not a lot of 40-year-olds vote. That I am an expert on. And I'm telling you, if they think it affects their pocketbook, they're going to vote. They not necessarily have demanding results, but they're going to want somebody trying for them.
An interesting fact, a few years ago, this East Tennessee, what does ETEC stand for?
East Tennessee Economic Council?
Yeah. They partnered with the government and did a study about the flow-down effects of the pension dollars that were spent.
Large.
And so it was like $400 billion in this area, and over like almost 3,000 jobs that are created by the money that's being spent by pensioners.
Wow. That's a lot of people.
So it's like, giving money to these folks is not like throwing it away. You're investing in the community that these folks live in.
Sure. Chad will give us one last break, and then we'll come back and conclude.
Daniel Forrester has been trusted by Anderson County families for nearly 2 decades. Daniel has appeared in Anderson County Chancery, Circuit, Sessions, and Juvenile Court thousands of times over the past decade. A Rule 31 mediator, Daniel has been trusted to mediate hundreds of cases across Anderson County. A community leader, Daniel has worked closely with local officials to make Anderson County a better place. A conservative and dedicated husband and father, Daniel's faith has shaped his character and integrity. On March 5th, vote Daniel Forrester for Anderson County Chancellor.
From Oak Ridge, Tennessee, IB3 Global Solutions conducts operations around the world to enhance the U.S. national security posture and minimize radiological and nuclear threats. IB3 Global Solutions. Mission first.
Fan Gear Barn is Oak Ridge's source for new and vintage sports fan gear from around the world of sports. Find your favorite team gear at Fan Gear Barn, located at 977 Oak Ridge Turnpike, across from the hospital. Open 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., 6 days a week. Closed on Sundays.
At Navarro, we partner with our clients to advance clean energy and deliver effective solutions for complex challenges in the nuclear and environmental fields.
The Free Medical Clinic of Oak Ridge presents New Year's Eve 2024 Countdown on Sunday, December 31st, 2023 at 9 p.m. to January 1st, 2024 at 1 a.m. Live band, food truck, hot air balloons, sponsored by Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Baird, the City of Oak Ridge, David Coffey, BBB Communications, and Holloway Event Company. Ball drop and fireworks. Come with your friends and family to count down the new year together. Don't miss it. Free to the public. For more information, go to fmcor.org.
All right, crew, let's get started. Sure.
Don't ignore the law. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 days before any digging project so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811.
Okay, this is Alan Beauchamp. We're back with Between the Lines. We're talking about federally retirees that worked for one of the major contractors here over the last 40 years. They have been living on a fixed pension that was private plans, and it's never changed in the last 24, 5 years. They've getting the same. If you got $4.99 then, you're getting $4.99 today. Whereas federal workers who work directly for the federal government at these plants, could have been any of a number of organizations, they have gotten raises most years of cost of living and other things. And take your calculator out and do the math. 3% a year over 20 years is more than double the money. And it wasn't always 3. It was 1. It was 2. It was 4. But average 3% is a lot of money. So the question is, does the federal government have a responsibility to try to help these individuals who worked hard at our nation's mission, in the energy mission, and definitely, for those of us that worked in the Y-12 work corps, it's a very essential part of our defense, a very essential part of us providing safety to the world. And these people sacrificed a lot to do these things. Ask anybody with beryllium disease. I mean, it's really bad. And so we need to find a way to get Washington to take a look at these pension funds and provide for these contractors. Can't make this money up. They can mishandle it, or they can handle it well, or whatever. But Congress has got to fund some raises in these pension funds through Department of Energy for these workers who, about everybody in our neighborhoods, probably 2 out of 3 people when I was a kid. I go around my circle, I say yes, yes, no, a doctor at the hospital, yes. I go around, and there's 12 houses on my circle, but 7 of those people work for a contractor, 8 people. So a lot of our family and friends, many of them are gone, but a lot of people, their children, second generation, as you mentioned, are now in a position where we need to take a look at this. So that's what we're talking about. What do we say in closing, guys? You got about 6-7 minutes. What's the most important thing? How often do you meet?
Well, we have a board of directors for this organization. We meet monthly.
Okay.
We meet in person over at the ATLC Union Hall on Viking Road.
Yeah.
And we're also
a lot of union people affected
meet
by
on
this,
Zoom.
yeah. They
And
worked
so,
hard. Yeah, I mean, and you started out this show by talking to me a little bit about, it makes a difference when you worked for $15 your whole life. A lot of people who made 80, 90, 100,000 in the last 20 years, those people may not be as affected when they retire because they have larger incomes and diversified investments. But the average, other people got a pension for what they did in classified jobs is the best way I could say it. They're struggling more, I think, and they need, and you could actually. You could use demographics to quantify what you do. You could say, we want to give people that make this much money this. It doesn't have to be blanket. That Congress and DOE can do what they want to do.
Exactly. There are a lot of different formulas that you could use to decide how much to give, at what level, what percentage makeup, a lot of different things. But the folks that are hurting the most are these folks that have been retired since the late 90s,
Yeah.
and may have been the lowest paid hourly worker, didn't have a 401k plan to fall back on, and so they're living on their pension and Social Security.
Yeah. Got a lot of people. There's a lot of people involved in that. Do you give me a little breakdown? I know you have it between how many retired workers do we have in each of the four categories? I mean, Y12 has the most, or O&L. It's about even, isn't it? I know you have a sheet there somewhere.
I do have a sheet.
Because I would be real interested in the job classifications. Obviously, that's somewhat sensitive information for the business, but it would be interesting.
So there's the total at Y12 or CNS is almost 12,000.
12,000. That's just on the program, not the ones that are coming on, right?
No, that's total now and forever. Right now, there's about 8,000 that are receiving benefits, and another 3,000 or so that'll retire in the future.
Okay.
So I'm just looking at.
Give me the ones without the retired in the future, right now, without getting checks right this
So
minute.
at Y12, you got about 8,000.
Okay.
At that small guard group, you got 90.
Okay.
You got about 1,500 at UCOR, which is the old ETTP.
Sure.
And then you got
K-25 to me.
about 5,400 at UT Battelle, or the lab. So that makes up the 15,000 that are
Yeah,
receiving
so Y12
pension.
has about 60% of them. And that's a lot of people that worked out there.
Yeah, the Y12 and the lab are the two big contractors right now as far as people in the pension fund.
Did the average worker, I'm just curious, did the average worker at O&L make more than the average worker at Y12? Same kind of jobs. Would you say that was possible? My father was an O&L guy, and I've obviously done work for Y12, but I just curious about it.
If you're a union, the answer is no,
That's
because
correct. That's what I thought.
it was all ATLC
Sure.
union, and so
Yeah.
there's
A lot more
similar
union guys at
pay scale.
Y12 though, right? More union type. I mean, I know what the layout, I mean, there'll be more guys.
But if
production over
you're salaried, it just depends. You got some world-class scientists that are probably taking some big bucks at the lab, but you got some world-class managers and scientists at Y12 as well. So it'd be hard to say.
Yeah, and the one thing COVID does is make it harder to recruit people. You got to have more productions, more benefits, things you didn't have to have 30 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. But I think it's interesting. Is the medical benefits or the medical support, is it in the same fund with the pay support?
No, the pension funds are
Strictly
set
salary.
aside, and there are all kinds of government laws and so forth
Got
that
it.
apply to pension funds.
But if I got medical benefits, who pays those as part of my pension?
It's still the contractor that you retired from.
Separate fund. Okay.
Yeah, and it's actually budgeted different by DOE. The contractor still
Different line item, okay.
has to go up and ask for, this is how much money we're going to need to fund our medical benefits that we're going to be given to retirees. Like I said, and they
Different line items on the budget, DOE's
Yeah.
budget, I got it.
and whereas these pension funds are sort of budgeted looking at a
Sure.
actuarial view way down the
Sure.
medical costs are kind of looked at pay as you go each year. They go up and ask, this year, this is how much we need. Now that you're a year or two out in the federal budget, but
30 years ago, I was in Pittsburgh. That was a mess. They were trying to keep up with everything, and it was changing so rapidly. Not government necessarily, but private, corporate, everybody. Trying to keep up with medical benefits was a real. And, we got new medicines. They're more expensive. There's more tooling. I think you're doing great work, Dave. I think we need more of it. And we need to have some sit-downs in Washington to figure out what we can do to get this problem fixed.
well, I appreciate you having me on.
We will.
I know political folks listen to you and your show, and we're hoping that they'll start paying attention to us.
We're going to try. We're going to draw some attention to this and get some people. I obviously work in that world, so I have some access, but, I never knew a lot about it. We got about 30 seconds left, and I really appreciate Shirley coming down and coaching me from the sidelines and making sure I didn't make any mistakes. And Dave doesn't make mistakes, but I do. And y'all, I just show no. But I think I've learned some things tonight. I hope some other people have too. I will send you both a text link. Oh, she'll send it to you. I'll send her.
Okay.
About that, and you'll be able to share the show with anybody you want. Good night, folks. Thanks for watching.